My best friend Gwen turned my life into a nightmare for 13 years, saying, "I treat my friends differently than you." After a devastating realization during a trip when I could only afford rice, I finally broke free. It hurt, but healing begins now. What was I thinking? Obligatory, I am posting this from a disposable account because my main account is followed by several friends, and I am not prepared for them to know about this part of my life. This will be lengthy, just as a warning, as everything occurred over the course of approximately 13 years. A summary is at the bottom. I met my former best friend, whom I will refer to as Gwen, when we were in middle school. I was a year ahead of her and we began our relationship on a negative note. I was a bully back then and a snobby one at that. I was one of those people who thought that only I could like something, and if someone else shared that interest, they became a target for my bullying. When I targeted Gwen as the new victim, she physically stood up to me and stopped me from harassing her. As odd as it may seem, I deeply respected her for doing this. No one had ever stood up to me until that moment. We ended up talking and discovered that we had a lot in common. Following this, we became friends. We did not live far apart, so we spent a significant amount of time together after school and during the summers. My last year of middle school was particularly challenging as I suddenly faced several serious health issues at once. I have always been medically fragile. This was the first instance when our friendship became strained, as I was not around much. This was also when her true nature began to emerge. She became verbally and physically abusive and emotionally manipulative, but I was wearing thick rose-colored glasses. It is true what they say. When looking through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags appear as mere flags. I was in a delicate state and frequently visited the hospital while awaiting surgery, but because of my age, it was difficult to find someone willing to perform the surgery on such a young person. During this waiting period, she often grew angry and lashed out at me. Her favorite tactic was to tell me what a horrible person I was, how my behavior caused her to act that way, and then she would block me on everything or ignore me for weeks at a time before reappearing as if nothing had happened. This led to persistent anxiety for me. She also talked about not wanting to be alive, to the extent that my family had to intervene and speak to her parents, as the stress caused me to visit the hospital multiple times. I became quiet and reserved, even stopping socializing with most of my friends to cater to her demands 24/7. I developed severe insomnia as a result. If she texted me at 1 a.m., I had to respond immediately or face her wrath the following day. Honestly, I attempted to take my own life a few times, but was found by my family before any serious harm occurred. When I entered high school, I had a bit more freedom during school hours, but after school and on weekends, I was devoted to Gwen. The abuse escalated to the point where I was subjected to every form of abuse imaginable. When she began high school, my small degree of freedom came to an end. I had to cater to her every need, including allowing her to use my limited lunch money to buy her lunches. I would go the entire day without eating, as I never liked eating breakfast and only consumed dinner. I never informed my family about this because they were already attempting to convince me to stop being friends with her. I had reached a point where I frequently acted out against my family because I had developed a debilitating dependency on Gwen. Just as in middle school, Gwen isolated me from my friends and used the same mind games. There were times when she would scream at me on the bus or in the hallways. There was even an incident where one of my few friends needed a place to stay for a few days due to a tragic event, which coincidentally occurred on my birthday. I spent that birthday comforting my friend, but Gwen made me miserable for a month afterward. Additionally, my parent was battling cancer that had entered its late stages, but I focused more on Gwen and argued with that parent more often when they asked me to do things. By my senior year, I was driving and had a car shared with my family. I drove to school most days and rarely had Gwen with me. That 30-minute drive became one of the most peaceful parts of my day. Unfortunately, I was foolish enough to allow her to use my locker, so I had to see her multiple times a day. I became skilled at hiding things from her, even resorting to lying, something I do not enjoy when I was juggling other matters. I remember as an early graduation gift, my parent took me out of school one day to see my favorite band perform. I lied to Gwen, claiming my aunt was ill and we were the closest relatives. While this was not entirely a lie, it was not the complete truth. She bombarded me with her psychological tactics, causing me to miss most of the concert. At this point, I was casually dating someone. I had to keep this relationship secret from Gwen because I could only imagine her reaction. When my partner asked me to prom, I had to decline and pretend that I was uninterested. In reality, Gwen did not want me to attend and threatened not to come to my graduation. She did not attend my graduation regardless, but she did come to the party afterward. The card she gave me was actually thoughtful and included good memories. My initial college plans fell through due to unforeseen circumstances on the college's end. Apparently, my full-ride scholarship was not actually a full ride, so I entered the workforce immediately. I earned just above minimum wage and worked 40 hours a week, but any money not spent on gas went to Gwen. She desired many expensive items and would become extremely sad if she did not receive them, claiming it was unfair that I had so much money while she could not even afford coffee. During this time, since she was still in high school, she began hanging out with another girl whom I will call Stacy. I had not met Stacy yet, but Gwen's demeanor completely changed when she spoke about her. I sensed that something was off with Stacy. When I told Gwen that I did not really get along with Stacy, Gwen became furious and told me something I will never forget. I treat my friends differently than you. I'm not like this with my other friends. I should have left at that moment, however, I couldn't. I was so entrenched in my own misery that I felt I could not live without her. After she graduated, we did not see each other often, but texting, Skype messaging, and phone calls remained frequent. I had changed jobs and was working random hours, but rarely slept due to needing to respond to her. Upon learning that she and Stacy were planning a trip together, I persuaded Gwen to go on a trip with me instead. Reflecting upon this, I suppose I felt jealousy towards Stacy, or perhaps it was my dependency on Gwen that made me want to keep her happy. Regardless, I started accumulating debt to attempt to appease her. At this point, 8 years had passed. We had established a routine, but one day I broke it by asking someone to see a play with me. We were only acquaintances through Gwen, but we both shared an interest in this play. Gwen had no interest but instructed us to meet her at a certain location later to hang out, so we attended the play and then went to the place Gwen suggested. We both texted and called her but received no response. When we eventually found her, she was with Stacy. Gwen then treated us as if we were stalkers and told Stacy that she did not know us. Later, Gwen confronted me about spending time with this other individual, alleging that her parents had seen us together and thought we were dating. I stopped communicating with that person afterward to prove my loyalty, and I still regret that decision. My consequence was once again the strategy of ignoring me. Up until this point, I have not mentioned my gender or sexuality. This is because I have questioned them throughout my life. I never felt entirely female or entirely male. I discovered that I am more gender fluid and accepted that I am asexual, though I am open to dating any gender casually as long as it does not escalate. Before understanding my preferences, I convinced myself that the reason I disliked Stacy was that I was in love with Gwen. I confessed my feelings to Gwen, and she told me that she liked me too, but that I truly needed to work on myself first. In hindsight, this was probably just her tightening her grip on me as it began to loosen. It was around this time that I met Alex. Alex could tell right from the start that I was living in miserable circumstances. I am not sure why, but I felt comfortable with Alex immediately. I confided everything that had transpired between Gwen and me up to that point. Alex mentioned the concept of rose-colored glasses and said mine were a mile thick. They actively encouraged me to attempt to sever ties with Gwen, but it was challenging to do. Each time I tried to tell Gwen we needed to have an important discussion, she brushed me off, and I ended up consoling her and apologizing. At that point, apologizing felt as natural as breathing. A few years later, the glasses began to crack. I underwent a major unexpected life-changing surgery and did not feel well. Months before this, we had purchased tickets to a play in another state. Despite being in no condition to travel, I decided to do it anyway. I ended up becoming very ill upon our arrival and asked my parent to create an emergency that would allow me to return home. It was an extremely long journey, and Gwen was angry with me all the way home and for months afterward. That was the first time I recognized that Alex had been right. I was merely a means for Gwen to achieve her desires. Not long after this, I discovered that Gwen had also been keeping secrets from me. We would make our usual plans, but then Gwen would not show up. Rather than feeling relieved, I felt panic rise within me because I would think I had done something wrong and had been blocked again. I repeatedly called her and sent numerous text messages asking what I had done wrong, apologizing for whatever it was. Later, I learned that she had been going on trips with other people and not informing me at all. That was when another crack appeared as I realized how much control she had exerted over me. She had to know everything I was doing, with whom, and for how long, while I was not allowed to know anything about her plans, as she claimed that it was too invasive. Ultimately, we reached the final months of our friendship. There was an out-of-town event we wanted to attend where one of her friends lived. We planned to meet up with the friend for a few hours before the event and then return home immediately afterward. I had been out of work for a few weeks due to severe illness and lacked the funds to attend. Gwen and I made an agreement that she would cover gas and food, and I would repay her once I returned to work. I had mentioned up front that gas for both trips would be approximately 60. When we arrived at the gas station to fill up, I was handed only 20 and told that she did not believe I would need more than that for the trip. That was all I received for gas and food combined. I had to plead with my relatives to send me some money so I could make it home. They were in a tough situation themselves, but managed to send me 15. When we met Gwen's friend for dinner, I could only afford a bowl of rice. At one point, Gwen left the table after indulging in a large amount of food for herself, and her friend asked me why I wasn't eating much. I told them the truth. They viewed Gwen in a new light and shared some of their food with me. I still tried to rationalize that perhaps she had miscalculated and did not have enough money herself for the trip, but I was gravely mistaken. She had gone on a shopping spree before and during the event, and had spent several $100s on random items. That was when the rose-colored glasses shattered completely for me. Alex had been right all along. I had allowed this person to control every aspect of my life. I was not permitted to like anything that Gwen did not enjoy. I was not allowed to appreciate the same characters she liked. I was not allowed to possess my own opinions. Everything had to revolve around her. Even my relationship with my parent experienced extra strain because they too had seen through Gwen's facade. I did not want to discard all those years. I wanted to attempt to improve things because in the back of my mind a voice still said, well, maybe she did not realize the effect she had on me. So I finally told Gwen that we needed to talk. I expressed my feelings about the years we had spent together and how I had been wanting to exit the friendship for quite some time. This was met with anger, as she asked how I could do this to her since I had been her only friend throughout those years until she met Stacy. I informed her that I was not her only friend as she had many others. I even questioned whether I was truly her friend or merely a source of financial support. I offered her a chance, stating that if we both worked on the relationship and ourselves, something could be salvaged. She declined and said that everything had run its course. I acknowledged her stance and requested not to be contacted further. I was not strong. I wept for a long time afterward. Against Alex's advice, I reached out to her 3 times after the fact, once to ask for a face-to-face meeting to discuss matters amicably, once to send items I had bought for Christmas, and once to check if she needed anything as the lockdowns began. I never received a response to any of those attempts. I see her occasionally but try to maintain my distance as my anxiety surges. Occasionally, I dream of her trying to apologize, but I know it would never happen. I often wonder if she perceives me as the villain as much as I view her as one. It has been almost 6 years since then, and I am still in the process of healing. My life revolved around her to such an extent that I cannot recall many memories without her presence. Everything reminds me of her, but I am trying to forge new memories. I am starting to revisit interests that I once enjoyed and explore new activities. I have met a few new people whom I adore, but sometimes I fear they may think I am too damaged. Alex remains in my life as the true best friend I could ever wish for. My relationship with my parent has improved somewhat, but we still face challenges. I am beginning to explore hobbies again. I continue to experience severe insomnia caused by sleep-related anxiety, but I am working with my doctor to address this. I also have general depression, anxiety, and panic attacks that I am currently addressing with my doctor. I previously worked with a counselor, but they unfortunately retired. I had only a few sessions with their replacement before my insurance changed. Additionally, I am finally consulting another doctor about my inability to eat more than once a day. I am still hesitant to ask for help or appear needy, but I am taking it one step at a time. In summary, I spent 13 years enduring abuse and manipulation before the rose-colored glasses shattered, and now I am simply a bundle of frayed nerves trying to reassemble my life. Story 2. Desperate to escape my relationship, I'm torn between love and unhappiness. After being your world for her, I feel ignored. Do you even care? I ask, only met with silence. Is it postpartum depression, or is it time to leave for my sanity and our daughter's sake? TLDR, we were in a romantic relationship for 5 months before I accidentally got her pregnant. We decided to keep and raise the baby. After more than a year and a half with our romantic relationship on hold, I feel that whatever we had is no longer there, but I am struggling to determine if I am simply feeling depressed or being unreasonable in my expectations. We have been trying to make it work, but I just feel emotionally drained, anxious, and unhappy. Background: when I say single, please understand that I am referring to being very single, not casually dating, hooking up, or anything similar. I mean being an adult man who is not engaging in romantic or sexual relationships with the opposite sex. To begin, for the vast majority of my adult life thus far, I have been very comfortably single. I had one serious relationship in high school that ended poorly, and I dated a handful of girls for less than a couple of months. But these experiences never grew serious, never involved moving in together, and never progressed beyond a few dates and some brief physical encounters before I concluded that I was not ready to commit to a long-term relationship. I would estimate that during the 7 years of my adulthood prior to starting to date this girl, I was actively pursuing women or dating for only about 6 months, spread out over those 7 years. I mostly prefer being alone. I enjoy a significant amount of alone time and have 2 close friends with whom I would choose to spend just under half my free time whenever possible. I have serious mental health issues and have struggled with depression on and off since I was about 7 years old. I was hospitalized for a suicide attempt at 19, and I worked for several years to slowly emerge from that deep pit of depression. At around 24 and a half, I felt stable enough and had made enough progress on myself to consider dating seriously. Whether that was true is still uncertain for me even now. Regardless, I guess it must have been quite apparent that I was single and looking for companionship, as one of my coworkers contacted me unexpectedly and we began talking. We accelerated our relationship quickly, and I felt that I had never connected so well with another person before. We meshed remarkably well, and being together felt effortless. I did not feel as if I was forcing myself, which I had experienced with other girls before her. I believe that most people feel this way about someone when they fall in love. However, I honestly do not think I had ever been in love before this point, so perhaps I mistook that feeling for compatibility. Around 3 months into our relationship, she moved in with me, and while we certainly began to argue a bit, it was nothing extreme. Our disagreements mostly revolved around how we prioritized our time. I wanted to spend some time alone or with friends, and although she would always express in a sweet voice, "Sure, babe, you know I have no problem with you needing that," it somehow ended up being an issue. More significantly, whenever I wished to have a discussion about differing viewpoints or mild disagreements, she would shut down completely and offer no response. At times, she would retreat to her or our room and go to sleep if I broached a subject. I believe she developed this response as a defensive mechanism stemming from her childhood and her relationship with her father. She frequently discussed her strong desire for children, which I only partially considered. At some point, she discontinued her birth control. I am just beginning to understand as I write this why all of this bothered me. Anyway, by around month 4, I started contemplating what life with her and children would be like. Even though I was still very much in love with her, I realized that I did not envision having children with her. Then I made a mistake and did not use a condom once. I ended up inside her, and yes, I know I am entirely responsible for failing to take precautions. This incident deeply unsettled me and compelled me to seriously consider whether I wanted a future with her. I suppose even one slip-up can change everything. Anyway, we discovered about 5 months into our relationship that she was pregnant. I was quite alarmed, but I assured her that we would manage it together. She indicated she wanted to keep the baby, which I had anticipated, and so we began planning our future, determining what we would need to ensure a stable home for the baby by the time he or she arrived. I entirely set aside my own wants and needs throughout the entire pregnancy, believing it was essential to support her as much as possible. She wanted to be near her family, and mine were too religious to offer support, so we moved 900 miles away to an unfamiliar location where I knew no one. I left college and accrued considerable debt during this time while attempting to create a comfortable environment for her during her pregnancy. Throughout the entire pregnancy, it felt as if our romantic relationship was on hold. Even though she consistently claimed that our relationship was a priority, it felt as though it genuinely was not. I understand that a romantic relationship may not be the most critical aspect for a woman during pregnancy. However, I genuinely believed we should have utilized some of our downtime to learn more about each other and grow closer. Instead, I only experienced a persistent emotional distance from her. I read extensively about how women's hormones influence their emotions during this period, and I suspect she may have been coping with significant depression. I say suspect because despite my encouragement for her to open up to me, I continue to encounter the same silence and avoidance, her quiet demeanor, and so on. I recognize that pregnancy can be incredibly challenging for women. Having observed my mother's struggles during her pregnancies, I understand how difficult it can be. However, if one is attempting to maintain a relatively new relationship and genuinely cares, one must put in some effort. During the second trimester, I broke down and explained to her how alone and unheard I felt in our relationship. I expressed my struggles with feeling as though I was the only one trying to keep our relationship intact. She broke into tears and promised to do better, assuring me that she would avoid shutting down every time I attempted a serious conversation. She at least partially reassured me that she would make an effort, spoiler alert. She did not, and she still largely ignores me whenever I start discussing my feelings. The entire pregnancy was fraught with tension between us, and half the time it felt as if we were on the verge of breaking up. Whenever tensions escalated, I instinctively suppressed my emotions and focused on being supportive and understanding, convincing myself that she simply needed time and assistance. I was the sole breadwinner throughout the pregnancy and until our daughter reached 6 months old, which resulted in extreme financial stress. I often sat in my car alone, experiencing panic attacks several times a week. Then our daughter was born. The same issues persisted, and frustratingly throughout our relationship, she has repeatedly told me, "I love you so much, you mean the world to me, I couldn't do this without you," and I genuinely believe she loves me. However, over the last 5 or 6 months, my own ability to invest in the relationship has begun to decline significantly. I have made earnest efforts to make her happy and alleviate her burdens. We use formula, so there has never been a need or justification for a primary parent, and I have seized every opportunity to contribute as much as possible. Whenever I suspected I had contributed less than 40% to the baby care during a given week, I compensated by taking over 80%. Household chores should not need mention, but we handle them equally 50% from each, no questions asked. I have read an abundance of misguided information about men not doing enough household work during the postpartum period while searching for mental health resources for new parents online, and I genuinely believe I have done everything I could to counter this notion. We both work 35 to 40 hours a week, and with formula feeding, we have been able to effortlessly share responsibilities. I was secretly relieved when she expressed her desire not to breastfeed, since I really disliked the idea of not being an equal partner in care during feedings. Around Christmas, which is just a couple of days from my birthday, I experienced a powerful feeling of I don't care anymore, and I realized I was much happier when I was not around her. To be honest, she is not a bad person at all. She is very kind, an excellent mother, and has been a decent friend when it comes to engaging in fun activities or games. However, I cannot reconcile the fact that she kills communication so quickly and effortlessly. I have started to genuinely feel that I cannot envision myself spending the rest of my life with her. We have built an entire life together, and we have numerous ties connecting us. I have tried explaining to her how deeply wrong our relationship has felt lately, but of course, she always responds with silence. Sometimes she may attempt to distract me from my feelings by initiating intimacy, but the hurt feelings remain. I have made diligent efforts to cultivate romance throughout the pregnancy and after the birth of our child, taking her on weekly dates, purchasing her clothing, buying her gifts she enjoys, and attempting to arrange in-home movie dates and game nights. I have tried countless things, and while she has shown some responsiveness, even though we engage in sexual intimacy, I have begun to sense a significant lack of emotional connection with her. For me, intellectual and verbal intimacy is crucial. For her, it appears to hold little importance. It feels as though I am trying to navigate a relationship with someone who is content merely going through the motions, but lacks interest in delving into the finer aspects of what sustains a relationship, at least one for which I could envision a long-term commitment. I require a higher level of communication to feel a connection with her. Even past girlfriends whom I left for various reasons could engage in rich conversations. It seems unfathomable to me to contemplate spending the next 20 years or more with someone who cannot provide that, especially regarding our relationship. It is more complex than that, of course. I also feel sidelined and ignored, and I believe we did not have enough time solely focused on each other to establish a foundation strong enough to weather the stress of parenting. While I recognize that much of this may seem like me complaining about her, I want to emphasize that she genuinely is a good person, just someone with whom I find it incredibly difficult to feel close. I feel that having sacrificed so much of my life to support her and care for our child, I deserve at least a basic level of acknowledgement when I express frustration. I do not have family or friends nearby. Essentially, the only person I know well here is her. I experience high levels of stress every day in our relationship. Lately, I have felt that several things are true. One time spent away from her feels incredibly relieving, and I often fantasize about being single again. Not in the sense of casual sex single, but rather being alone and spending more time alone again as an introverted mental health challenge single. 2. My mental health struggles make it difficult for me to concentrate on more than one intense relationship at a time. I believe I could be more present and a happier parent if I only needed to focus on my daughter. 3. While she is an excellent mother and a good friend, I see her as a terrible romantic partner. I have tried diligently to follow the best advice regarding relationships, but it simply does not seem to work. She appears oblivious to my needs and seems to believe that our relationship will somehow resolve itself if she ignores the problems. I cannot continue in this manner indefinitely, and I have been struggling with these issues for well over a year and a half now. I feel she would make a much better co-parent than a girlfriend. I urgently seek advice on how to proceed. I recognize that some of these sentiments on both my part and hers may be influenced by postpartum depression. I am also genuinely fearful of my financial stability collapsing if we were to separate now. This question does not concern custody or child support, as I am confident I will remain a significant presence in my daughter's life, regardless of my relationship with her mother. How do I determine if it is time to give up on trying to make this relationship work for the sake of our daughter? What if the moment we reconnect and feel like a wholesome couple again is just around the corner? I understand that children can strain relationships, but what do we have when 18 of the last 23 months have been almost completely dedicated to the most unromantic aspects of life? I want to believe that everything will somehow be okay, despite expressing all of these intense feelings regarding her impact on me. I genuinely want to believe that we can make our relationship work. She tells me she loves me, and I feel that she has become quite attached in various ways. I truly do not wish to hurt her or disrupt her life. However, there are critical elements I need from a relationship that I cannot and will not compromise on, and she does not seem capable of providing them. I have not seen enough evidence during our time together to trust that I will ever receive what I need. In short, at what point do I give up on trying to make things work for the sake of waiting it out for our daughter? If I decide to leave, how do I gently communicate this to her and separate in a way that ensures we both remain financially stable? Edit, I have been concerned about my feelings being related to postpartum depression, particularly given my mental health history and previous suicidal thoughts. I have noticed an increase in such thoughts since my daughter's birth, although I question whether they would persist for so long, especially for a man. Story 3. After breaking up with my ex who said I was nothing and threatened my cat, I found myself drawn to a coworker. You need to talk to your family, they said. I'm falling for him, but is it too soon? Would I be good enough after surviving my toxic past? I recently broke up with my ex-partner of 2 years because he began to stop appreciating me, and when I attempted to resolve the issues, it seemed to only worsen. He started withdrawing from me more, especially since, for the past 2 years, he had done nothing for our anniversary. For our second anniversary, we simply got ramen and went home. He also did not do anything for my birthday, and for my birthday party the following day, I had given him months of notice and he promised me he would stay and be present. However, not even an hour into my birthday party, he left without informing me, and I only found out through a friend. Consequently, I gradually distanced myself and began observing how he had reverted to his previous behavior. We rarely went on dates. Before I initially broke up with him, I tried to discuss my feelings, but he did not respond to my questions or say anything at all. Instead, he seemed annoyed and left for work. After discussing my situation with friends at work, I decided to end the relationship. I sent him a message outlining how I had been feeling and how I had made efforts to communicate, but he did not appear to understand or care about us. He reacted by berating me, calling me names, and claiming that I was worthless and had nowhere to go. I left him on delivered because I was working, but by the end of my shift, he was apologizing and saying he did not mean what he had said, that he loved me and that he promised to improve. I know I was foolish to take him back, but the reconciliation lasted only a week before he broke up with me again, and that was when I was truly finished with him. I am unsure what caused his change because I am usually very friendly and shy around people. While we were working for a company together, I met some of his friends, one of whom was M27C. We started talking because my ex would often arrive late or not show up at all. After I stopped working with my ex, I began playing Call of Duty, and my ex would also play with him. However, after some time, they had a small disagreement and my ex ceased playing with him. I then started playing on his account, and one day he added me to play with him. However, he initially thought I was my ex, and we began playing much more during our free time. My ex was aware of this and was fine with it. One day C added one of his other friends, A, who also assumed I was my ex. However, C corrected him and said, no, she is his girlfriend. We all started talking, playing, and having fun. When my ex came home from work, he asked who I was playing with, and I told him the truth. He simply lied down and told me to enjoy myself. Prior to all this, he warned me to be cautious around them, claiming they were untrustworthy. However, I never sensed any negativity from them until my ex had to leave for work around 10 p.m. He kissed me goodbye, and as soon as he left, they began asking questions about my relationship with my ex. I answered truthfully, recounting how we met and other details. They shared information that I was unaware of, such as how my ex had told them that we engaged in intimacy daily and how skilled I was at it. He even showed one of them my nude photograph. They also made jokes about my ex's previous girlfriends who had been abusive, and he would make insensitive jokes about them, including one about an ex and how he had done them. This behavior made me start pulling away from him. I questioned my ex about what I had heard and whether it was true, but he evaded the questions and became upset that I listened to them over him, arguing that I had only known them for a couple of weeks while I had known him for nearly 2 years. Eventually, I dropped the subject, though I probably should not have. However, moving forward to when he finally broke up with me in March, I was still talking to them and seeking advice. They pointed out that the way my ex treated me was inappropriate, and that I should not be known only as my ex's girlfriend. They encouraged me to speak with my family. I had my ex's initials tattooed on my hip and I covered it up myself. When my ex discovered this, he became furious and lashed out, which made me completely done with him. I moved to another room upstairs and slept separately from him for 2 to 3 weeks. Near the end of March, I was helping at work, and he told me to text him once I was finished since he had to leave. While I was helping my ex was incessantly messaging me, which made me increasingly upset and irritated. So I took my phone and began texting him, pretending to be myself. I caught my ex in lies because he had told me one thing, yet his texts conveyed a completely different story. For example, he claimed he had never been with an ex and that he had said so merely to infuriate me, subsequently trying to lie about her working at certain stores when she was not. After I finished work, he called me and threatened to hurt my cat, saying he would break her neck or throw her outside. I had to rush home to check on her and she was alright, just shaken, but he was not home. I stayed on the phone with my friends during that time. Toward the end of that week, he began being mean again, so I decided to go out for some fresh air. Upon waking from work that day, he bombarded my phone with messages asking where I was and what I was doing. I lied and told him that I was helping A. This was when I realized we were completely done and I was finished with him. Eventually, he asked to see me so we could finally talk, but when I arrived and we began discussing things, he exploded at me, accusing me of cheating on him, something I never did or even considered doing. I told him that I did not come there to be yelled at, and he responded, "I am not yelling at you. I just want to know the truth about why you broke up with me." I retorted, "I broke up with you first. I took you back and you said you would change, but you did not. You promised that our anniversary would be different, that you would get me flowers, but you did not. Now you break up with me and you wonder why I am acting cold and distant toward you. You never once listened to my wants or needs, and it took months of me telling you how those jokes made me feel before you finally stopped." We fell into silence and he asked if I loved him. I said that I did, but it was becoming difficult. He then suggested that we could work on things if I blocked the two friends because they were the reason we started deteriorating. I did not respond, prompting him to issue an ultimatum. It was either him or them, and if I wanted to stay with them, we would have to do it one last time. I chose them, which hurt and felt immensely uncomfortable. When I told him to stop, he became enraged and threatened to call the police on me, asserting that it was his car that I had been paying for over the past 2 years. I asked how I would get home, to which he replied, "Not my problem." We began arguing, and he attempted to get something from the hood to make the car inoperable. I put my hand in the way, and he started punching the car. After he stopped and removed the part, I sat in the vehicle crying and shaking. I felt compelled to call the police, and when they arrived, he emerged again. We each answered questions separately, and neither of us pressed charges. The police allowed him to reinsert the part and let me drive home. This incident occurred around 3 a.m., and shortly before the fight and everything had escalated, I had stopped talking with it. When I got home, I attempted to break down the door because there was hardly a door on my room. Eventually, I lost consciousness and was awakened by my ex shining his phone light in my face, shouting that he wanted me out and that he had blacklisted my phone so I could not call anyone. He claimed he was recording for his safety. When I tossed my phone aside, he started accusing me of attempting to strike him with it. When I got up to retrieve it, he fought me for the phone, shoving me and causing me to hit my ribs against a dresser. I dropped the phone, picked it up again, and turned to face him when I felt his knuckles and his phone hit my upper lip hard, resulting in a loud snap. My mouth started bleeding and I began screaming and crying for him to leave me alone and to get away from me. This occurred at 8 a.m. and his brother ran upstairs, demanding to know what had transpired. Upon seeing me, he asked what had happened, and when I moved my hand away from my mouth, he instructed my ex to go to his room to calm down. After my ex complied, his brother returned upstairs with a bowl, napkins, and water, checking to see if I was all right. He apologized for how he had acted and treated me, and throughout the day until he left for work, he continued checking on me, asking if I needed anything, bringing me food and drinks, and assuring me that if his brother attempted to approach me again, I should just call for him and he would come. After he left, I calmed down enough to text C and explained what had happened, sending him a photo. That was when he began conversing with me again, advising me not to lie or say anything inappropriate to C. He called me to ask about my well-being, requesting my ex's phone number. I provided it, and I believe he told my ex that hitting women was unacceptable. He warned that if he or his friends did not hear from me within the day, they would come to take me away, and if my ex did not fix my tooth, there would be consequences. Around 4 p.m., my ex returned to my room, attempting to love-bomb me and express regret. He claimed he had set up an appointment for me to fix my tooth. After we had a filling placed, he continued trying to be kind and affectionate, but I had shut off all my emotions toward him. I was finished. That was the third time he had laid hands on me, and I could not endure anymore. On March 30, I woke up, applied my makeup, and he attempted to talk to me, suggesting that we should start over because he did not intend to hit me or break my tooth, and that we should consider having a child to mend our relationship. Before I left for work, I told him that no matter how angry or upset I had been with him, I had never struck him, and I would not want to bring a child into a situation like this. What was stopping him from hurting them too? I left and began working, but he started screaming because I was not letting go of the fact that I had consistently communicated my lack of a future with him and my desire to cut ties. The second week after our breakup, he stated that he would have the car towed. Before that could happen, my manager, bless her heart, sent me on my meal break, and I sat in the car crying my eyes out. I texted my sister and brother asking if our mother would take me back, and they informed me that I would need to ask her. So I swallowed my pride and called my dad. When he answered, I asked, "Dad, is mom home? I really need to talk to her." He went upstairs and woke her, saying, "Your daughter wants to speak with you." I could hear them arguing until he called my name, and my mother responded that she did not want to talk to me. He insisted, "Just talk to her." My mom took the phone, and as soon as I heard her voice, I broke down in tears, apologizing and telling her that I knew I had messed up. I acknowledged that nothing I could do would mend the pain I had caused, but I missed her and needed her support. I promised that if she would give me one more chance, I would never again choose a relationship over my family. I explained that my ex had been physically abusive and that I wanted to return home. As soon as she heard that, she asked for my location, and she expressed that my actions had hurt her deeply. However, she reassured me that I should not be subjected to violence. She inquired about when I would finish work, and I told her it would be at 10 p.m. She assured me that she would come to collect most of my clothes along with my brother. By the time my meal ended, I returned inside, hugged my boss, and expressed my gratitude for all she had done. When my ex came to tow the car, I gathered all my belongings and utilized my coworker's vehicle to transport them until the end of my shift. When my workday concluded, I hugged all my coworkers goodbye and wished them the best. After retrieving my belongings from my coworker's car, my brother arrived and I embraced him, crying and apologizing for being a terrible sister. We then went to my ex's house to retrieve my cat and the clothes I needed before leaving. I managed to access my bank account and I left with 200, but when I departed my old home, I had 1,400 that I had earned over almost 2 years of continuous work. As we drove back to my original home, A offered to assist me financially if I worked with him, stating that he would compensate me for the cases I had successfully managed. I hesitated, saying he did not need to do that, but he insisted, "No, you are helping me out. It is the least I can do." Eventually, I accepted the offer, and I have been assisting him since. Now that I am back home with my family and have opened up to them about my relationship, I have recognized numerous red flags and realized I should have left my ex sooner. I feel much happier and more energized than ever before, and my friends, along with A and C, have noticed this change. They are thrilled that I am returning to my normal self. However, I started developing feelings for her before I moved back home. I am unsure if it is because we have experienced similar situations or if it is due to our many shared interests, but we genuinely enjoy each other's company. I began to like him and he has acknowledged his feelings for me too, but I worry that I will not be good enough for him or that he deserves someone better. I am also concerned about moving on too quickly and feel that he should find someone closer to his own age. Yet I feel jealous when he interacts with other girls, and he has noticed this and teases me about it. He is a kind and funny person to be around, but I am unsure how to handle my feelings for him. He has mentioned that he feels the same way but wants to approach things properly, but my anxiety is overwhelming me, leaving me uncertain about what to do. I apologize if this does not make sense or if the wording is unclear. I am simply very confused and anxious. I genuinely do not know what to do. Story 4. Ignored by family my entire life, I watched my cousins thrive while I felt invisible. "Mom, what about me?" I cried at Christmas as they tore into gifts galore. Now at 20, I'm buying my inner child's toys, but all my relatives see is a ghost. Can they ever truly know me? For context, I 20 years old female and my sister, 24 years old female, come from a challenging background. My parents endured a difficult life. My mother was abandoned with her grandmother after her own mother moved to another state to remarry. Although her grandparents cared for her, they could not protect her from some of her uncles, who were physically and sexually abusive towards her. This trauma led her to grow up as a rebellious teenager, resulting in her academic struggles. My father and his siblings initially lived together with both parents, but this came at the cost of enduring their abusive father, who often fought with their mother, and she would frequently fight back in self-defense. After several years, they divorced, forcing the family to move homes frequently because they could not afford rent for extended periods. Being the oldest son of 5 siblings, my father started working at the age of 14 to help his family survive, sacrificing his educational aspirations while his siblings managed to study without such burdens. With that background, I can begin to share my own childhood experiences. I was born 4 years after my sister, and during that time, we were visiting my grandfather in the northeast of Brazil. However, as soon as I turned 6 months old, we relocated to the same state where my maternal grandmother lived so that my mother could try to reconcile with her. The issue was that her mother's new husband did not like my mother or any of her siblings, children of my maternal grandparents, which resulted in verbal abuse directed at her and her family, including my sister and me. Although I do not remember much of the verbal abuse, my sister does, as she was bullied by him for being a chubby child, and we had to endure it because we lived in a small house built atop his, unable to afford rent. Eventually, with the assistance of my maternal grandfather, my mother found a small plot of land for a low price in the same neighborhood, which she purchased using all our combined savings, and little by little we built our home. We experienced a brief period of happiness, but after my grandfather fell ill, we relocated again to be close to him. I hate to admit it, but it was the happiest time of my life. We lived for a year in my hometown in the same apartment building as my uncles and aunts, my father's siblings. Since they were able to pursue their careers without the responsibility of supporting their families, they obtained high-paying jobs as accountants, engineers, and banking agents. None of them had children at that time, so my sister and I received a lot of love and attention, which was a stark contrast to how my maternal grandmother treated us, as she favored her new grandchildren, the children of her and her new husband's children. We experienced love, received gifts, and began settling into free ballet lessons at a local public arts institute. I was excited to watch My Little Pony without having to wait for my father to download episodes during work and bring in a USB drive for us to watch. We did not have internet access. However, when my grandfather passed away that year, we moved back before I had the chance to perform in my first ballet presentation, and we returned to being ignored by my maternal family. Fast forward to when I was 10 and my sister was 14. We were invited to a Christmas party at my grandmother's house, and we were incredibly excited, hoping she would remember us and give us something or at least some attention. However, that same year, my uncle, my mother's full brother, the only one treated well by my grandmother because he feared her husband and his family, came to visit, and my grandmother focused all her attention on my young cousin during that time. When it came time for gift giving, my grandmother donned a Santa hat and began picking up presents from under the tree, announcing who each gift was for. There were numerous gifts wrapped in well-known toy store wrapping paper, leading me to hope that at least one was for my sister and me. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. As she continued to read each recipient's name, the pile of gifts for my cousins grew larger. It reached a point where my grandmother needed to retrieve a cardboard box the size of a washing machine, literally. She had purchased a new washing machine at the time, and it came in that box to hold all of her gifts. I vividly remember looking at my mother with teary eyes and asking, "Mom, what about me?" This deeply shattered my mother's heart, prompting her to gather my sister and me and leave the party early. Following that, my parents pooled together the little money they had saved for my mother's necessary dental procedure and bought gifts for my sister and me, organizing a scavenger hunt at our house. It genuinely became one of the happiest Christmases I had experienced, but as I grew older, I felt guilty knowing what my parents sacrificed to create that joyful memory for my sister and me. As time passed, we dealt with the death of my little cousin, the daughter of my maternal half-aunt, who was very close to my mother. We decided to relocate to our hometown again, near my paternal family. I hoped that things would be different since I had fond feelings for my uncles, aunts, and grandmother, and believed that my sister and I would not be sidelined any longer. However, upon arriving, we realized that history would repeat itself. My uncles and aunts had their own children and no longer needed us, especially since we were on the verge of adulthood ourselves. This leads to the title of my post. I observe my little cousins enjoying a wonderful childhood, engaging in extracurricular activities, participating in presentations and competitions, while I never had the opportunity to take part in a single ballet presentation. They have rooms full of toys and are spoiled by everyone, making them the center of attention at family gatherings. I cannot help but feel envious. I longed for this kind of childhood. Please do not misunderstand me. I love my parents and appreciate everything they did for me. However, as a child, my cousins seemed to have everything they desired while my sister and I merely watched as they were surrounded by affection. Now that I am older, they do not make an effort to understand me or my interests. During Christmas gatherings, I feel like crying because they dominate the gift-giving discussions, reminding me of that one Christmas with my maternal family. Currently, I work freelance as an artist and animator, earning a decent income. In an effort to heal my inner child, I purchased the toys I never had as a child, such as some My Little Pony figures and more recent collectibles from Sylvanian families. I decorate my room with pinks, lace, and flowers, yet my paternal family still does not truly know me. One of my interests is claw machines. I possess the skill to catch plush toys without spending too much money. Yet my little cousin has recently begun to pursue the same interest but lacks the skill, often spending excessive amounts of money catching plush toys, while the family praises her for her achievements. I feel as though I only have my sister to confide in as we share similar feelings, but while she has started to feel uncomfortable with our aunts and uncles, I have begun to feel uneasy around my cousins and young children in general, and I am not proud of that.